thinks the Commercial Real Estate Roundtable meeting is the best thing we do.
Hey.
I do. I love the Commercial Real Estate Roundtable. Brings some of the smarter people we know together, and the information is always so interesting. I was talking to Mr. Lipscomb a while back, and he said, you know, the tax digest back in 1960 was, give or take, Emory, Forsyth County tax digest.
I believe it was 100 million.
100 million. And what's the tax digest today? Anybody think on what? Sending billions and billions and billions. So that's a lot of fun, exciting stuff. Since 1960. I had the great honor of MC today. We want to recognize our sponsors for starters. We got Georgia Power and Affinity Bank, Smith and Howard, and Jan Rudy as well. And I'd like to introduce both Perez for Georgia Power.
Over
Here.
Well, so I thought I was going to have my new colleague here to introduce. He couldn't make it today, but it's, oh, is that better?
Yeah, you can put your mask down when you speak.
Okay, I have a cold, so I'm not going to. It's not COVID. I did that in January, so don't worry. And I tested just to be sure I wasn't a special case, because with 4 children, sometimes I am a special case. But I'm going to keep this on so nobody else, should they choose to brush their teeth, doesn't might get some trouble. So anyway, so first thing I want to say is, for any of you that knew Doug Jenkins and sort of the face of all things Georgia Power here in Forsyth County, he's moved on to the Columbus area, got a new opportunity, super excited for him. But I want to make sure you're familiar with the name of Jeff Butterworth. You've had a chance to meet Jeff in and around Forsyth, awesome. If not, definitely please make sure, remember that name, look out for him, attending chamber events and being in and around Forsyth. He's going to be your all things Georgia Power. You can always contact me about anything. But there will be times when I'll kick you over to Jeff and inform what it is. So that's the main thing I wanted to say today. The other thing I just wanted to say is, who read the Georgia Trend article in January and then got pushed out? Right about, oh, come on, Mario hasn't seen it, right? I mean, what a great story to tell. And already for the Georgia Department of Economic Development, their fiscal year ends in July. So we're halfway through their fiscal year. It's already a banner year for the state in terms of jobs and capital investment. And you're going to continue to see that trend align with what's going on in Forsyth. And that's really a big compliment to the long-term strategic planning and the leadership that's going on up here. And the continued back and forth with folks like yourselves, developers, others in the room who want to see Forsyth grow, but grow in a way that meets community needs and also fosters really strong industry growth. So really, I'm just up here to say congratulations. Read the article, and then, you know, Kevin, I don't know what y'all are going to add to that today to continue to talk about all the good things, but I'm certain there are some. So, Brooke Perez with Georgia Power, anything you need, community and economic development, please feel free to reach out. Thanks for having me, and I'll turn it back here.
First, don't forget me. We have someone in this room deeply recognized. We've got Commissioner Mills back there, Cindy Mills, for being here. That Georgia Trend article. Was there anybody else in this room that was featured prominently in that article? Anybody?
I was gonna do that and I didn't, so I'm glad you did.
The blue in the back of the corner, Clay Gullick, our very own head of economic development for the chamber. He was front and center in that.
Cannot poster. Cannot poster.
See a blessing behind that man, as you're right. And of course, the inimitable Scott Evans, our economic development team is good to be true here in Forsyth County. Just straight arrows, straight shooters, and paragons of virtue. Without further ado, let's make. I'm looking forward to this meeting. I've been looking forward to this more than all the rest. I get to introduce this guy. I don't feel like I'm fit to sit next to this guy. These guys, more or less, introduce them. But Kevin Tanner has just been so great for this community for so long. I thought Tom was going to be here, Cindy. Whatever y'all did to get him here, thank you for that. I think getting the big thing right makes everything else so much easier. Kevin has been such a good actor for this county down at the Capitol. We're just so lucky to have him as our county manager. Without further ado, Kevin Tanner.
Well, I'm gonna have to pass, that's $20 on to you, and then you don't think that and, you know, Georgia Trend article will be in the James magazine in April, that's the featured story. Good Insider Edition covered recently in Forsyth County, announced this week $32.6 million for water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure here in Forsyth County, the largest single water in the state of Georgia by the governor. So a lot of great things happening in Forsyth County. We're standing on the back of a lot of great leadership for us, and a lot of leadership we have in the county today. Thank the Board of Commissioners for their vision and their leadership. Bill for being here. So many great folks in this room. We were asked today to talk a little bit about transportation. This split this forward.
I'm sorry. Hey, Kevin, I'm sorry. Just tell Slade to advance the
All
slides.
right, go ahead and address the slides. We'll talk a little bit about transportation in Forsyth County. You know, when you manage a community like Forsyth, one of the things no different than managing business or managing the state. You have to understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and make sure you're able to mitigate those weaknesses. And one of the things that anyone who's been around Forsyth County for a number of years, and Carter had mentioned working with me in the past, most of you know that I served in the General Assembly, and I was the chairman of the Transportation Committee in the Georgia House for a number of years, and worked on a lot of initiatives. Some of them we'll talk about today as opportunities for Forsyth. But transportation and congestion is front and center on everyone's mind in Forsyth County. It has been for quite a long time. The Chamber did a poll last year asking residents through the University of Georgia, what's your number one issue, your number one concern? And it's overwhelmingly congestion and traffic. Congestion and traffic has a direct effect on the ability of commercial real estate professionals and development to be successful in our community. If we don't solve those problems, we're going to be stagnant when it comes to economic growth. So it's front and center on our minds, and I know it is on yours. And I know from the polling, it's overwhelmingly the number one issue on our citizens' minds. So we talk about congestion control. How do we do that? Increasing capacity on our roads by looking at intersection improvements, road widening, and then we come down. We know it's the number one issue on citizens' minds. It's the number one issue on voters' minds. So what do we do about it? And one of the things I told the commissioners early on, I think we have a lot of challenges at Forsyth County, but we have ways to financially address all of those challenges. We have a clear plan and a clear vision of how we're going to address them, except one, that's transportation. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why that one's difficult. Most of you are familiar with Post Road. Post Road has been talked about for a long time. It's a huge need, one of those that raises everybody's radar of the need of the road that needs to be addressed. That road, just to fix that road, is going to cost $100 million. So that becomes very challenging for a community like Forsyth to address that one problem is $100 million. So we start looking at what are our options, funding options. How do we get the money necessary to fix transportation in Forsyth County? When we start thinking about, well, in the past we've done bonds, where we've done property bonds and that type of thing. And, you know, and that works. That works. And if you look back at what happened in the 2014 bonds, it's $100 million one time and $100 million the next. So if you think about just Post Road, that one bond would just fix one road. And so that doesn't go very far. That one bond is going to be paid off in 2038. So that's on our property. Those of us who own property in Forsyth County will be paying for that all the way out to 2038. So I'm not sure that we can bond enough against our property taxes to be able to address our transportation. The other thing to keep in mind is that's only for those of us that are paying for that are owning property here in Forsyth County. All the folks who use our road infrastructure traveling through Forsyth every day, coming to work, they're not paying anything to help fix our roads here in Forsyth if we do bonding. The other option is we look at our traditional SPLOST, our special purpose local option sales tax. And that's a good source of revenue. We have about $100 million in the squash today for roads. But that also has to pay for our fire infrastructure upgrades, for fire trucks, for police cars, for building new fire stations and upgrading fire stations, for parks and parkland, which is also very important to our community. So it just doesn't go very far. So then we get down to what is a funding source? Next slide. So we talked a little bit about T-Splosh. But if you remember back, if you've been in Georgia for the last decade and a half, last decade, you'll remember the TIA, the regional T-Splosh conversation. And I know the chamber would have been involved in that here. But back around 2012, the General Assembly passed this ability for the region, which at the time would have been the GMRC, Georgia Mountain Commission region, could all come together and they developed a project list. They put out to the region a vote to collect 1 cent sales tax, and that money then would go to that entire region. Well, it failed fairly miserably here in places like Forsyth County, and really one of the primary drivers was that we were going to be a donor county. So Forsyth County money was going to be going to counties outside of Forsyth County to do road projects that were not going to benefit Forsyth County. Dawson County, our neighbors to the north where I live, had the same issue. It was going to be a donor county to other counties. So the citizens did not like it. And also the transportation project limits had not, in my opinion, across Georgia. We had a lot of projects on there that were probably unnecessary. So it failed. So what we did in the General Assembly is we said, let's look at where that failed. We know we got to do something with transportation. So let's look at it. So we changed the T-Splosh law to allow for individual counties to pass a single county T-Splosh, or 1 cent sales tax. All of that money stays in the county. And then you can use that to leverage federal and state dollars. So that's just a little bit of history of the T-Splosh. The T-Splosh is a 5-year tax. It's a 1 cent sales tax that is dedicated to roads. And it's paid by everyone who shops, who uses, buys gas, whatever the case is. But people come to a convenience store, they go in and get a Coke in Forsyth County. They're contributing to our road network, and they're using our road network. And it's estimated, private projected revenue, we're saying 375 million over 5 years. I will tell you, those numbers probably are realistically more in the 250 to 275 range. But under current state law, once you tap out your collections, then it stops. So you want to always project high so that you can continue to collect for the full 5 years. There's a bill in the General Assembly now to change that to allow your collections to continue. So that's underway. Next slide. All right, David's going to talk about this and get into some specific projects that we're looking at and how we came up with these projects. Those of you who don't know David McKee is one of our 2 assistant county managers in Forsyth County. David runs what I call more of our heavy industry operations, water, sewer, public works, engineering, capital projects, solid waste, those types of operations for county government. We've been instrumental in working with our capital projects team and our engineering team coming up with the project list. So David.
Thank you, Kevin, and what an honor to come and talk about this program. There's a lot of hours behind what we're about to show in about 10 minutes. So if you have specific questions as we get going, I'm sure you will. My door is open. I'll make time to sit down and talk about specific projects. Question, why is this on there? What does this do? The intent here is not to read this, but the intent here is just to answer the question, what can we use T-Splosh for? Kevin talked about that's a possible option, possible solution for that. What can we use it for? The state law is very clear on what we can use it for. This is a clip straight out of the state law, but basically for transportation purposes, and that's sort of broad. What we're proposing them to, for the most part, in the program that we have, is for that congestion relief. I think if we all drive around, perhaps we were a few minutes late today because we were tied up in congestion, just in a small area. So a lot of it is congestion relief. Go ahead, Slade. programming the T-SLOS, in 2018, our commission here in Forsyth County adopted a all-encompassing transportation improvement plan. It was based off of modeling, and there was a number of projects that were in that transportation improvement plan. That's the basis for our project list. Now, there was some added projects there because we know there's other projects that have come up for some reason or another, be it development, industry or whatever. So there's some other projects that have been added, but the basis for our project list is that 2018 plan. You may be saying, well, that's a 2018 plan. There's a lot changed since 2018. You'd be exactly right, which is why we have remodeled a couple things. We've updated the cost estimation on that. Any projects that were funded in that plan, projects that were already underway, obviously it was completed. You won't see that on this list, but if it's funded and there's already a funding source allocated, it was pulled out of that transportation fund. Obviously, we don't need to offset those funds there. We've identified a number of projects in this list. Let me make sure that I'm saying the right thing here. We've identified a number of projects, not all of them, but we've identified a number of projects that can be completed within this 5-year time. I think it's very important for our taxpayers to see something on their return, right? If they approve this, it's a big ask, we understand, but something on the return. So there's a lot of simple intersection improvements. Well, what does that do? The quickest, easiest way to reduce congestion in a lot of areas is fix the intersections, fix our pitch points, fix our bottlenecks so that we can do that. So there's a number in this program that can be completed within that time frame. We've updated our cost estimates. That's a challenge. I think anybody that's in estimating would agree with that. So we've updated those. We know that the project is going to happen out 3 or 4 years. Then we add a multiplier to that, around 5.5–6% is what we're working with out to those future years, so that when the time comes, we've got the program for this. Our projects have been mapped, so every project has been mapped. We've got fact sheets on each of the projects. There's a total of 114 projects identified in this overall program, and they total $860 million. So now you're saying this guy's about to tell me we're going to do $860 million worth of projects in China. That's not true. What we believe is if we don't have a plan to move forward, then our partners that Kevin just mentioned at the state and federal government, they're not even going to talk to us if we don't have a plan. So we've identified $860 million worth of projects. If you said, David, I've got it right now, we can do it. That's just going to be a snapshot in time to fix this. We have to continue to look at this. So 114 projects identified, $860 million is what today's estimate is on those projects. Those we put timelines in those. So what's the solution for that? That's really what we've done. The communities that have been successful with single county T-SLOS, and much like what we do with our SLOS programs, is we have buckets. So what do we mean by those buckets? So I go to the next slide. Okay, you can go back to this because that's going to confuse everybody right there. So what do we mean by those buckets? So each of the improvements that are proposed, each of those projects that are proposed, basically fall within about 3 or 4. Well, they fall into 5 different categories. So it generally no way to pass being a widening project or something like that. Intersection improvements. We have sidewalks and multi-use trails. We're also going to allocate about 2% per year for what we're going to call this precise quick response, so that if something comes up during the year that none of us can see, it was a rabbit pulled out of the hat. Right now, we do not have a funding source to address those transportation needs. So we're going to put a funding source there for that. And then what we are also going to do, and you'll see in just a minute where I've allocated these buckets out there. What we're also going to do is if there's some projects that we know, and the chamber's working on a poll, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll get that poll. I'm seeing some heads nod, so I think that's what. And in that poll, where our hope is that we'll see some of these projects that the citizens are very keen on, and hopefully we'll get folks to go, support that. So we'll list those specific projects. You may say, David, why don't we list all of the specific projects? Well, if the way the law is if we list the project, we have to do it, regardless of whether we collect that amount of money. So that's why we put it in buckets, and it really gives us the opportunity to fund it as we go, because we're not going to bond this and get sort of pay as we go. All right, so take a step forward. So what is this right here? This is a snapshot, and I think the next two slides are just quick snapshots of the actual T-SPLOST program. This is all 114 different projects here and here. The intent again here is not to read that and to see it. I pulled out some of these that are highlighted in yellow there. Hold on right here for a second. Carter and I talked a minute ago about 400 widening. It's identified as a project here. You can see from 369 to Jobbing Road, widening from 4 to 6 lanes. And you can see the cost estimate. That's a $69 million improvement of today's dollars. In that particular project, we're considering just doing the design and the right of way during this T-SPLOST. So that's not a project that would be completed during the T-SPLOST. Something else you see in our program list, we have it's ranked in high, medium, and low. I'm not the smartest person in the room by any means, so I see it as red, yellow, and green, right? So when we have our consultant Jacobs is assisting us with putting this together, they ranked all of these projects. They all got a score from 1 to 100. Well, if you've got a bunch of different numbers up there, it doesn't mean anything. So all of these rankings that you see, high, medium, and low, congestion relief adds the highest score to their scoring system. Capacity also adds score. So that's a little bit about how we got to where that was there. Obviously, we put commission district to each of those so that we can make sure that we're addressing the needs in each of the commission districts. Slade, go ahead. So what you see right here is our first stab at the program. Essentially, what we might see on the ballot. Obviously, it's going to be changing over the coming weeks until we finally hammer something down. You'll see the top 2 lines up there which says specific projects. We haven't pulled specific projects out yet. As soon as we know what those specific projects are, we'll make the decision whether we list them, much like has happened under the City of Cummings project. The City of Cummings had 3 projects. Cumming bypass phase 1 and 2, and then the State Route 20 turn lane. If you're familiar with downtown, that's an additional lane on the south side of 20. As you're coming into Cumming, it will be a continuous turn lane that will continue on to Castleberry Road. It would vastly help with the, if I fall, everybody laugh if I'm okay. So then going down, we talked about those buckets. How are we doing on time?
You're good.
We're good? Okay. We talked about the buckets, the roadway general capacity, and everybody in here can read, so you can kind of see what that is, and then what that cost estimate is for that. So how do we get to those cost estimates? We took the $860 million program, whatever percentage, everything that fell in that bucket fell, that's the percentage that we backed into it from the $375 million worth of projects. So it's really just a percentage of what those projects would be spread out over that. Roadway operations, that's intersection improvements, that's our roundabout retrofits. It could be something as simple as timing of a series of signals, getting them all timed correctly. So that's something that can be a real quick return on our investment there. Roadway resurfacing and reclamation, that's something that the T-SPLOST allowed us to do is obviously general maintenance. We can't forget that. We have about 1,200 miles of roads in the county here that every 8 to 10, 12 years, we have to be resurfaced. And if we don't, the reclamation part of it is you can only resurface so long and you've got to reclaim it, refix the base, and you're back in the cycle again. So all of these improvements are good, but we still have the potholes, and we know that nobody wants to come to a place that's really the population and things like that. Multi-use trails and sidewalks, there's some, we got that question in different groups. Well, what about the trails and what about sidewalks? That's a form of transportation. Pedestrian is a form of transportation, so we can fund those here. And that looks like a high number, but any sidewalk that's on the side of the road has been pulled out, put into that pocket. So, and then there's our quick response, call it Forsyth quick response. That's a 2% annually that we have a funding source. Don't have specific projects allocated, but if there's an industry that's coming in and we have to make some road improvements today, we have to get real creative in how we're going to fund it. But we don't have a funding source out. So this will allow us to do that. Talking about the city of County, Kevin and I have had meetings with the city. We're going to continue to have meetings with them. We will eventually have an intergovernmental agreement, IGA. You've probably heard that several times. And it will match the data in that IGA will match this. And then they've got some roadway lease service. I believe that is our last slide. No, so thank you, Slade. Talked about, they mapped each of the projects. Each of the 114 projects has one of these little data sheets. And the data sheet there just identifies the project, what the cost estimate is. If there's right of way involved, it identifies that. It maps it, and then there's a description for each of the projects. So that's what we don't want anybody to do is, if we go to do something with these T-SPLOST dollars, then we don't want somebody to come back and say, hey, this wasn't on the list. Why in the world is the county doing that? You can rest assured that any project we do will have one of these, unless it's a quick response type project. And obviously there'll be a lot of years into that. There we go. So I'm going to throw a plug in for Taylor, our communications team. There's some cards around here. There's a connected site app. There's a new app that our IT folks did. You can go on there. We will eventually have a T-SPLOST website that you can get all this information, and what public information we put out there will be on that website.
One of the things I wanted to just add, David mentioned a couple of times about the fact that we complete all the projects in 5 years. Transportation projects take a long time. As you know, there's a design phase where we have to have an engineer do a design, depending on the project. That takes some time. It could be as much as a year or 2 years. Then we go into right of way acquisition, which takes time. We have to acquire or even down the right of way. And then once all of that's done, we can actually go out to bid and hire a contractor to start the work. So all of these projects that we're talking about, we would do either one of those things or all of those things in that 5 years. So we'll actively work on it. The goal here is we will have a continuous funding source to meet our transportation needs, not only now, but out in the future. David said, we as the leaders of the county and our commission and those who work for them, we have to be good stewards of your dollars. So if you give us the opportunity to have this funding source, we then have to prove to you that we're using it wisely or making forward progress. So when it comes up 5 years from now, we'll say, hey, they did a great job. We're going to continue to provide that funding source. So that's what our goal is. David mentioned the card. I'm going to get Taylor and Lauren to stand up just a second. Lauren is our communications director, and Taylor is our student services coordinator. Both of them work in our communications department, and they are happy to work with you in any group that you have. The cards that David showed you right outside on the table. If you don't have it downloaded, I encourage you to download our mobile app. From that mobile app, you can get the latest news from Forsyth County government. You also can get any directory contact information for any of us who work at the county. If you're driving around the county as a real estate professional, and you see a zoning sign, what that's about. You can go on the app, you can look at your location there, you can click on the app, it will show you what that zoning is all about. If you're driving around the county and you see a transportation project underway, you're thinking, man, I wonder how much this costs. I wonder who's doing this work. I wonder when it's going to be completed. Go to the app, go to that location, click on the project, it will show you all that information. This is a very valuable tool for you as residents in the county. Our website's recently been completely overhauled. take a look at our website. We will continue to update that and improve that as it relates to informing the public about our transportation project. So with that, we're excited about the future of Forsyth County. You've got a great team working for you, Forsyth County government. David and I both have great folks on our team that are excited to deliver projects to you. We've got great partnerships with our contractors and our engineers here at Forsyth County, continue to build great relationships with them. So we're going to be able to deliver in a big way for Forsyth County over the next decade, and we're excited to be a part of it. So with that, I guess questions, we open it up for any questions.
Yeah, just make sure that you use the microphones at the end of them in the table. So
We didn't do that here.
So,
I got a question.
hold on.
Let me bring the mic. Okay. Sorry for on the radio. And then, it's like virtual on, everyone else can hear you. So, GE is actually gonna be going on with their vehicles and a lot of car makers is going on with their. And I wanna see it has Forsyth County followed up their EV charging infrastructure to handle this onslaught of the regular vehicles for the market sector.
Yeah, that's a good question. And we have some electric ourselves in Forsyth County government. We have some charging stations now at our county administration parking deck. We also plan to have some of those at our new campus. We didn't get into that today, but Forsyth County is going to make between a $90 and $100 million investment on Freedom Parkway, 3 separate buildings, all debt free. And that's one of the things I think is important for this. This is all pay as you go, no additional debt for Forsyth County taxpayers. But yes, we're continuing to monitor that. We've got Raymond Kinney, our other assistant county manager, who comes from the private sector. He was a CIO for a very large company. He's on top of the EV conversation. We're continuing to monitor how that progresses. We're also working with ARC now, with the Liverpool community, it's called a transportation study around Ossian and McFarland area, looking at future technologies, how we can incorporate that into our transportation needs. So to answer your question with simply yes, we are.
Let me also say that there's a lot of other funding sources for the electric vehicle charging stations where we wouldn't have to tap into the local T-SPLOST. So certainly.
so to get this done, the $375 million projected over 5 years, is there an opportunity for that? How will those funds be amplified with matching funds, et cetera?
I'm glad you brought that up, Carter. I should have said that in my presentation. Those are local dollars, but GDOT's been partners with Forsyth County in the past. Commissioner Mills was involved working with GDOT, getting 400 widened, and a lot of other projects, 369 and 400 is currently underway. All of those projects happened because Forsyth County came to the Georgia Department of Transportation and said, we're bringing spin in the game. We're bringing money to the table. We want the leverage dollar to stay. That's the same thing we're going to do. We'll be sitting down with Russell Murray, the GDOT commissioner, and Janine Miller, the planning director of GDOT. We'll be sharing this project list with them over the next 30 days or so. And we're going to be asking them what they can do for Forsyth County. So we'll leverage state and federal dollars. Our hope would be over a decade that we would be able to pump as much as $1 billion into Forsyth County and transportation projects from local dollars and state and federal dollars. And again, completely debt free. So at the end of that, we will not owe a single dime in transportation projects. So excited about it.
Let me add, if I can, just for one additional thing. If you were at the Transportation Summit last spring, we heard it from the commissioner's mouth that they are more than willing to help communities to help themselves. So you'll see on this project list that there's some state roads that we're willing to fund. And what I'll tell you is that if we don't do that, it's going to be years out before the state has to or is able to fund. So that's, same.
Just to piggyback, I'm Commissioner Mills, and just to piggyback on, County Manager Tanner's comment. In the Peachtree Parkway overlay, I know that former Commissioner Brown, put in there charging stations, so, there are some, in the commercial developments. In South Forsyth, there are charging stations in those developments that come in as well. And we can add those in conditions anywhere in the county as well too. And I just wanted to reiterate that partnerships mean everything, and communication means everything. I'm not just saying that because y'all are in front of me, but I think that us knowing early on about your projects that you've got coming in and getting those, you know, depending on their significance in a transportation plan, to be able to have that, you know, the power of knowing the impact on roads, it's just huge. I mean, you cannot say this, you know, how important that is. I mean, knowing, having a relationship with state representatives and having those conversations, I mean, I can just speak for myself, but when those district maps changed, that had an impact on our T-Splosh, because we had already sat down and talked about where these roads are going. My district changed completely. I mean, that's got to be reworked and rethought about. I mean, because now my district's cut in half. And so that's got to be rethought. And so having those conversations, it doesn't change the need for the roads, but it changes how, as a district commissioner, you look at how I'm going to allocate that money now and how it's going to be done. And so having those conversations and relationships with your state representatives it's huge. And just being able to communicate with each other and partner with each other is such an important thing. And to have those conversations up front and work together is just, it's critical. And that's where you should be partnering and working together, and not at the twilight hour. I think it's just critical. And I think with business, it's so important. And I think I know some of you in the room, you know, working on those big projects, it's more like a partnership with the county and working on those together. So you're both successful. It's just a big thing, and that's where the community is the most successful too.
Guys, this is a great opportunity. Put the thinking caps on a minute, to have both of these guys here, to have Commissioner Mills, to have our economic development team, Vivian McKee back there, who's just fantastic on economic development, and all the guys who like commercial real estate, like you, Don Webster. This is a great opportunity. But put your thinking caps on. See if you come up $5 if the person comes up with that question. How's that?
I got a comment I'd like to make. I doubt there's many other than Amory and Cindy that's been in Forsyth County since the 70s. But I was talking about Post Road. I can remember driving my tractor on Post Road going to get hay at the Venable Farm, which is now the polo fields. But I do have a question. How did you guys wrangle more money from the state than afford to spend? That was a coup.
It's good. You also got to figure out what the state wants, you know, it's like if you're negotiating with someone, you figure out what their goals are, what they want. And so you find a way to get what you want by accomplishing something that's important to the state. It's important to the state that they're agreeing to the water engineers. They have to return a certain amount of water to Lake provide. So that means Forsyth County at somewhere out in the future has got to return 15 million gallons of treated water back to Lake Lanier. That return flow is high, and it's going to cost $65 million. So being able to offer that up, that we know we have to do anyway, and being able to ask the state to partner with that and these funds help. It'll encourage the state. So funny you mentioned polo fields. Somebody was talking about polo recently, they're talking about the history of polos being there so long. And my dad's like, "Oh, I remember so and so on that farm, and he used to sit out under his oak tree, and I used to stop out there and talk to him, and I saw timber before." So there's history, and then there's history, right? You at Emory House with that deep history of the platform. And I appreciate David Moller being here too. David lives here in Forsyth County. He's also taken the correct Highway Contractors Association. All the big guys that do all the road works are in his association, and we have to partner with those guys. It's an important part of the process to be able to build good relationships to get these projects done on time and on budget.
Kevin, I got one other just comment. Since these flatlanders don't go up like these, I do up 400. But I noticed, I was skeptical at first, but above the outlet mall, that continuous flow intersection works. Can we implement any of those in Forsyth County?
Well, that's definitely something GDOT looks at. You know, and a lot of folks don't like roundabouts, but GDOT's, and the federal government requires GDOT to look at, basically rule out a roundabout before they use a different type of intersection improvement. Because from an engineering perspective, they work very, very well. From a safety perspective, they work very well. And I agree with you. Lots of folks in Dawson County complain as the intersection is being built about how dangerous it's going to be, how crazy it was. I like it. You rarely have to sit at the red light very long. You continuously are moving, so it works well. It's a lot like David says, when we move into our new county administration building, we're going to have 250 employees that all of a sudden are engineers and architects, because all of them know better than white. It's a lot like this. We all think we're traffic engineers, but it does work. So all options are on the table with design. We'll work closely with the GDOT and their engineering staff on what they think works best.
Kevin, I've got the numbers from Mayor that was asked earlier. He said, we have not run the 2022 numbers, but as of 2021, the commercial industrial portion of the digest was 19.7%. The total digest was 16,679,466,000. The commercial portion was 3,286,522,000.
So I'll go back to what Sheldon said about thinking outside the box, if you will, for some of the improvements. You'll notice a lot of the intersection improvements and the capacity improvements don't specifically spell out what it is. Because I do want to think outside the box, and I want to challenge our engineers to come up with that most cost-effective solution that will deliver the solution that we're looking for. So you'll see it's open-ended on purpose, so that we're not bound by roundabout. If the roundabout makes sense today, but by the time we get to London, it needs to be a full signal with turning the planes and all that. Somebody's going to come back and say, David, you said you were going to do a roundabout.
One of the other things I think I like to brag on our staff, if we get a chance, once we think it's important to do in order to these types of projects, and even projects we're later today, if they're high quality for people. We've created internally a capital projects team to pull from all the different departments who are delivering individual projects within the department. We pull out all of the resources into a separate entity. John Jefferson, who's a County resident, he used to be a project executive at the state. He did Lanier Technical College, Burton projects. He is an architect, licensed architect, who manages that operation for us. We got James, who's a structural engineer that manages a lot of our structural projects, road projects, and vertical construction projects. We have Jordan Wallace, environmental engineers, one of our project managers, been trained now by GDOT as a project manager. We have Lynette. Lynette is licensed engineer in Florida, Puerto Rico. She is having expertise in water, capital water projects, ran that the Miami-Dade water system, largest in the Southeast. We're continuing to build a team internally that are experts that don't have to just rely on an external consultant, but they understand. I told them early on, we didn't want to tell the wagon dog that we were going to run these projects. We were going to make sure they're managed properly. And that's what we're doing. The consultants are a supplement to our internal resources, but we've got a dynamic team to continue to build on that field and deliver this type of project.
So to get this done, so I know the answer, it's a totally loaded question. There's going to be a referendum on the ballot in November, hopefully. And I know the chamber is eagerly endorsing the idea of getting behind that, right? And I think, but for economic development purposes, a lot of people misunderstand what economic development is. They think, oh, well, there's a company that wants to come to the area and you go over to that company and either they show up or they don't, they break up or they don't. But these guys on economic development are so much more, right? I mean, how do you, I guess you can allocate a value to SWAS and E-SWAS and WAS and T-SWAS. So what will happen for this to actually happen? There's a referendum, and
That's right. The county commission would call for the referendum. We're working to develop an IGA with the city. At the appropriate time, the county commission would call for this to be placed on referendum at the old November ballot. And then chamber and other organizations who have the ability to work, to educate, and to promote such a referendum. The county itself, we cannot go folks to either vote for or not vote. We can educate what will happen if this passes, what are the benefits of this T-SPOS, but we cannot tell you to vote for it. So that's where the chamber and other organizations come in. If it passes, then we will start collecting, probably receive our first revenue in April of next year. So we would then be able to immediately get the ground running with development projects. And it's 5 years, and then again, after 5 years, you can renew it. But that's the general process.
And understand, folks, these are not projects that we thought of for a T-SPOS program. These are projects that need to be done regardless of the funding source. Kevin talked about the options we had before us to fix these problems. These are projects that have been identified in a full transportation route.
I think that begs the question of what if we don't do this? What's the alternative? I think if we don't do this, then you're going to be forced with, we don't make improvement fast enough, congestion and traffic continues to get worse. That stagnates development through the economic market development specifically. And then we eventually, you have to find an alternative funding source, which means you have to raise your taxes on your property. And we have currently the lowest millage rate of any of the metro communities, any of the large metro communities around Forsyth County, the lowest tax. So we want to maintain that. This is the only concern we have to being able to do that, is transportation funding. So with this, that solves a huge problem. Yep.
Would you anticipate with the passing of this local funding source, would you be able, with the matching funds, would you be able to accomplish and complete the 111 projects or however many projects that you've identified? Would you anticipate being able to do this target list that you've come up with?
We won't be able to do all the target lists. No, we're going, the list that we are targeting, there's some part of that project we would be able to work on and complete. Just like David mentioned, widening 400, the job now. We know that's going to be more and more of a need out in the future. Mr. Mills has been working hard on some big commercial opportunities that are north of side. It's going to increase traffic. So we can start the design phase of that in this 5-year cycle, but the road project wouldn't be completed. There may be projects that we get through the right-of-way acquisition, and then the second 5 years we would go into construction. But we would work on all the projects. But like we said, some of these projects, even if we had all the funding in the world, it's going to take longer than 5 years to go from just an idea to a design to right-of-way to actually finishing the project. A lot of these construction projects take 36 months or longer, even once you start time construction.
Now, I got a question. So
You're welcome. $5.
I am. So is part of funds that we're talking about here, when you look at communities like Alpharetta and John Street and Roswell, and you're driving in those communities, you kind of see that they have this public design standards on how, they do street signs or, mascots and things like that. And when you come to Forsyth, we're still probably more of a small county mentality on a lot of those things. Are we going to think we're going to step up our game, say, as far as the design standards?
Yeah, well, one of the challenges you have is in a county as big as Forsyth versus Alpharetta, which geographically is fairly small in this area. They don't have the intersections, the miles of streets, as we do. So they're a city, and there's a difference between a city and the county road infrastructure. But yes, we are looking at, as we design an area, we want it to be complementary to what that area in general looks like. So if that means that these black mass arms, or stoplights, and that's what we want to be able to define. But we also want to be smart about how we use those resources. But yes, all of that's something that we will take into consideration. And we work very closely with the district commissioner for that area in these designs. And they're working very closely with the development community, so they know what these are for that area to suggest. Thank y'all very much.
I'll have one more. Besides transportation and probably affordable housing, what would be another concern for industries that they're coming with, saying, Forsyth is not really the area for us? Just curious as far as their, what we have heard.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge facing the state of general right now is workforce. I think that would be your biggest challenge, attracting a certain types of industries in Forsyth County would be workforce development. The Georgia Chamber, Chris Hart, has been talking, and the Georgia Chamber is going to workforce development task force to talk about that very issue. I think that's the number one challenge. I think the other thing is finding the right site. We don't have a lot of inventory. I know the chamber works a lot on attracting industry and warehouse and that type of space in Forsyth. And they get a lot of calls, but these folks, lots of them, when they're looking to relocate, they need something now, or they need something a year from now. We just don't have a lot of inventory. I think workforce, inventory, and then just having the right location to put these folks. And I think all of those are. Thank y'all for having us very much. Thank you.
Guys, I have to take another second for creative license just because I can. Get up here, man. What, Kevin, what makes that, you've been incredibly effective for us while you were down at the Capitol. Now y'all are, David and you are incredibly effective for us now that you're here in Forsyth County. What is it, how is it you've been so effective for our community in voting? What's the key to success?
I think that it's always important to understand what the objective is, where do you want to go, and not being concerned about who gets the credit for helping you get there, and recognizing more than one way to reach your goal. I think so many times people get so stuck in that my way is the right way, but I think if you can determine here's where I want to go, and I can let all these other folks feel like it's their idea, or they get the credit for it, whether it's state or local, whatever part of business. I don't personally care about that part of it. All I care about is we get to where I think we need to be at, and that's the place of success. So I think that's important. So not caring who gets credit and understanding there's always more than one way to get the job for it. And it all comes down to building relationships. You know, too many people today in political office, and I'm speaking, say, from the state and federal perspective, they've forgotten that politics is a relationship business, building relationships. If I generally like Carter, he and I we may disagree today on this one topic, but it does not mean he is a bad human. He's still a good guy. We just disagree on this topic, right? So we're going to work together tomorrow and 50 others. And so relationships is key. I have a good relationship with Governor Kemp. Now, he and I may disagree on an issue or two, but we have a good relationship. I have a great relationship with the GI. We may disagree. I have a great relationship with Speaker David Ralston. The idea that you can go to Atlanta and you can get up in the well and throw rocks to Speaker David Ralston because you disagree with him on something and you're going to be successful, it's just not going to happen. These folks are in very important positions, and we want to be successful as a community. We have to learn to find ways to work within the system to make the change to get to the point. So I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's been a really obvious.
I would say you answered my question like a cruise missile going after a title.
Carter Barrett, you're running for House. There's your mentor right there.
Yes, sir.
Scott, take it away.
I thought this was a friendly rain to me when I pulled my mask off just before I walked up here. I realized I was walking around all morning and it's upside down. And I was thinking that it was old. It has the change of logo. All right, this is something I want to bring up to you guys real quick. I'm going to ask, first of all, thank you, Kevin, David. It's no coincidence that we're here talking about T-Splits to the commercial realtors, because really, right here from the well, we're asking you to help us go out and sell this campaign. Slade and I, we logged our capital expenditures that were recruited here last year. We logged almost $250 million in commercial business that came to Forsyth last year, or as either recruitment or expansion. That's over $100 million more than what we did last year. And if we could have gotten a couple more projects to pull the trigger, we would have doubled what we did in 2020. And 2020, as bad as 2020 was economically, it was still better than 2019. So Kevin is correct. We don't have enough product here, and some of these projects and then T-Splits is going to create more commercial, parcels for us. And that's important because, every time I talk about economic development, I always like to start off with the baseline. If you take an acre of land and you have 4 homes on it, and there's acres here that have more than 4 homes on it, 2.5 kids. If you take the statistic that's on the school board's website, it's $9,600 to educate each one of those kids. So you're talking about $80,000 off of that 1 acre, and average home price is $400,000. And I'm rounding this up, but these are real numbers. $80,000 at 1 acre. $80,000 is what the education expense is. $4,000 per home, $16,000 coming in. Where does that gap come from? That gap comes from commercial development. And so I like to state that every time I'm up in front of a microphone talking about why commercial development is important. Okay, so in order to promote and recruit commercial development, we've set up a public policy committee, and there's some important things that's on the agenda for next Thursday, March the 3rd, and we need you guys to come out. If you will come out, call me, let me know, email me, because we have a list of bullet points. I'm going to go over very quickly because we know we're a little bit over the 1 hour. But there's a couple things that is very relevant to your line of work. Sketch plats. How many of you have done a project that's been affected by a sketch plat? The right hand. It should be all of it. If you close something in the last, a building, maybe not land. But we've been working with Kevin and the commissioners. And so we're doing some modifications, they're doing some modifications to help with commercial development. And one of those is the size threshold. In sketch plat and M1, M1 projects under 5 acres will not require a sketch plat. Sketch plat requirement for any building. I'll let you read this, but I'm doing this because the folks online may not be able to read it just yet. But the sketch plat requirement for any building expansion over 10% will be eliminated. And the requirement for a sketch plat to provide a title opinion will be eliminated. So these are all things that we've heard from the development community that would help in, in taking down some of the barriers for commercial development. Next one, please, Slate. Okay, tree ordinance. And, I've been in a lot of meetings with Kevin and commissioners. There was an update to the tree ordinance last year, and when it went into execution, I guess in August, there were some projects that got caught up into the updates that we just didn't think about, and so we tried to avoid going back in and opening that ordinance back up, but there was just no way of going about it. So it's coming back up. It's already gone through one hearing, but there is some opposition to this from the smart growth people. So again, we need you guys to come in and speak on behalf of what is being promoted, is being proposed by the county. So nothing else gets put in there that would be detrimental to commercial development. But we modeled this after Cherokee County. We basically eliminated 30,000 square feet, the footprint of a building, 30,000 square feet. We had a project that came here. They wanted to do a small industrial park. And anyway, they're changing it to where the aggregate. So the tree ordinance, the way it was written, it almost kept us from being able to do or it was very restrictive to an industrial park with small buildings. And that's, if you talk to Slade and you'll know that we get a lot of requests for 10,000, 12,000, 20,000 square foot buildings. We just don't have any of those. And, you know, the way that was worded was making it more difficult. So they're adding in the word aggregate. Okay, next one. Okay. So this is ordinance 2.0. Now, I don't want to go into the weeds on this, but ultimately, there's a barrier. Let's see the lower part. If you've got a tree on your neighbor's parcel and it basically is an undisturbed buffer 25 feet into your parcel, the top is what's being proposed. If you've got one tree, if you've got 1,000 linear feet and you've got one tree that would encroach, the root ball would encroach onto your parcel, it creates a 25-foot buffer all the way down that line, whole 1,000 acres. Excuse me, 1,000 feet. So what they're doing is the proposal is for every tree. I mean, there's no intent to destroy negatively your neighbor's property. So instead of making the whole 1,000 feet, it's just the root ball 25 feet for each individual tree. I mean, effectively, somebody could go out and plant a bunch of trees on their parcel and or they don't have to do one right now and basically take up, you know, a huge chunk of your land. Anyway, we need you guys to come out and speak in behalf of the whole. One more slide, Slade. Yeah, okay, that's the end of it. But please email me. I will give you the bullet points. I'll talk to you. I'll give you, we're going to go in as a group and speak on behalf of these things. Commissioner Mills, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is there anything that you'd like to add to this?
No, just know that you need to come speak about it.
Okay.
If you want to ensure.
Please. I've got 4, maybe 5 people that's already going to show up. I could use 3 or 4 more. Please, if you don't mind.
That sketch plat issue has been a big deal for businesses that say, you know, that I've heard from businesses that said, you know, I've owned this business for 20 years and all I wanted to do was expand my current business. And now I got to wait 6 months or 4 months to come before the board just to expand my current business. Are you kidding me? And now's the chance to be able to come and say, I need this change to occur. So my business is not delayed. I can see the board going either way on it. I think that it's important to hear from the business community on it. I really do. And we brought it forward from Dennis knows it's our development group. A lot of industrial people that came forward on it that it's asked for it. So I think it's important that people show up from the business community and ask, you know, that it be done.
Well, thank you. Again, thanks everybody for coming.
It's everybody in this room, David and Kevin, and Jack, we're shaking hands and met them, every single person in here. We have, gosh sake, for me, guys, it's astounding, Cindy. Pretty higher. Put your mask on. It's palpable to you what's going on. You heard all about your governmental agreements with the city and the county and things like that. It's like a symphony when it's all working right instead of one guy banging on a drum over here, somebody else over clanging on the cymbals instead of all work right, which is what's going on. I know these guys, they're the best in the state, they're probably the best in the country, at what we're doing, and you can feel it, it's so obvious, so. Anyway, thank you guys for being on.